Welcome to a new episode of the Advancing Consciousness series with Franco Di Nicola. This is a place where people can come to gain further insight and clarity as to what is going on and how we can shift things on a personal and global level, while also accessing higher levels of consciousness and awareness. We bring this series to you free of charge so that many are able to access this information. However, if you resonate with what Franco shares and you would like to support his work, contributions are welcomed and greatly appreciated. A link is in the description and will be provided in the chat if you feel guided to do so. Also, we have many previous workshops, such as a couple of our most recent, Maneuvering with Neutrality and Alignment during this next wave of unfoldments, and Deprogram Clearing Empowerment Workshop. You could also join us in our membership program, Let's Talk About You, where like-minded people come together bi-weekly to talk about the topics requiring deeper understanding and clarity. All of these are available on Teachable, and we encourage you to check them out as they are great resources at very affordable prices to assist in better understanding this human experience. The Teachable link will also be provided in the chat and description. And lastly, don't forget to share. As the more of us coming together and creating a shift in oneself, the more effective it'll be to shift things globally. Thank you for joining us and being part of the change. Enjoy today's broadcast.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Advancing Consciousness series. And today we're playing with episode 59. And I would like to say Happy New Year's to everybody. Here we are, brand new year 2021, and we get to play even further in the way that we have agreed to and have been aligning things. And as we know, that every time we're going through the different stages in our life, that we in one way or another advance one step after the next. And sometimes that requires us to really push things to the max. And that is what we've been doing through all of 2020. And we're just bringing it up to the next level of max. Just a little tidbit, there is no max. So in essence, that it will continue to advance. But the necessity for polarity, the necessity for resistance is diminishing so that it's not a requirement. So we don't have to grow with pain or discomfort or chaos or anything of that nature. Now, as you've noticed, that chaos and all that stuff really plays an instrumental role in creating shifts in all of us in one way or another. Some of us need that polarity much more accentuated than others, and others can get away with using a lot less. All right, fantastic. So today, as I said, it's episode 59, and we're going to be looking at are you here? Meaning all of us.
Number 4 what?
What's that?
Number 4 what?
I don't understand what you mean.
You said and push number 4.
Yes. Yes. So, sorry, we're kind of dealing with some things here. Are you here, meaning all of us, to create or to be a slave? That's an odd question. Are we here to create or to be a slave? What does that even mean? Well, we're going to take a look at that today. We're going to go a little deeper into that, get a deeper understanding how all that works, and basically how to shift away from it so that we are not playing that old role. Now, just wanted to let you know that we are having some issues with the internet. I did a recording earlier today, or a show earlier today, which is not going live, but we were having intermittent issues with the internet stopping and so forth. So should that be, just be patient. We'll try to get back on as quickly as possible. We've got everything running a certain way so that we don't end up losing. But just so you know, and if you get stuck, you may have to refresh. That's okay too. Just use that as a method. So here we are. Are we here really to be to create, or to be a slave? Odd question. Really odd question. What do you mean slave? Well, we have all gone through many lifetimes, all of us in one way or another, and may have played on playground called planet Earth, that in one way or another we may have played different sides of the experience and have experienced slavery. But now, the reason the question is asked now is because, as you can see, everything that's playing out in a very powerful way is kind of creating the stage of enslavery. Now, we've done that for 10,000 years, but now it's reaching another plateau and allowing us to really experience it much more powerful. So the call comes in, are you here to create? And what does create mean? Creating new realities, new state of being, accessing higher consciousness, accessing multidimensional capacities, accessing more of ourselves, and redesigning the whole human experience, the world, and everything involved accordingly. And that is also in alignment with all the changes that are going on within our whole solar system, our galaxy and universe. So, to step into creator state, you are no longer going to be able to be the slave. So let's move this and let's see how we play. So to identify what a slave is, and that's kind of a play with words in a way, because as long as we are outside of our own creator capacities, then we will take on what we can call a role of a slave, a role where we have no say in the matter, and a role where others will dictate our journey. And many times it's a very powerful and disempowered, and can be known as a victim state. And what is a victim state? It's a state where you feel that you have no say in the matter. The same thing in slavery, so that you are dictated how or what you get to experience. And we have done that for 10,000 years. But that in slavery is a lot with the ego itself, with all the programs and so forth, but also the systems, the different other playmates that have taken on those positions. So look at it right now, what we've been going through for all of 2020. We're into 2021. And, you know, a lot of people have talked about where you don't have the same level of freedom. Maybe some people do. But the thing is, across the world, at certain areas, we do not have the same level of freedom. That's what it's observed as. And then what I mean by that is that you can't go out and play and do whatever you want to do, because there's all these other levels of restrictions and fears and so forth. Because fear is enslaving, for sure. Survival is enslaving in one way or another, giving power to the whole idea that something can happen to me. That also enslaves us in a way where it actually controls, morphs, dwarfs, whatever words we want to throw at it, that our experience is not expanded. In fact, being mandated to do something or to receive something, to give you allowances of going out to do something, and in this case kind of rolling out in that way, it puts us back into the slave state. The fact that we're giving power to money, and that the fact that the money is only way to survive, which is a whole nother idea, this whole thing of survival. You have to be really disconnected and to survive, because our true design is flourishing. Our true design is what we are and having access to anything and everything, but we've created what people call slave race. And you're now a slave to money, to systems, corporations, to leaders, to religious organizations, and through family dynamics, through a lot of different channels that we feel ourselves enslaved by. But when we're looking at that and saying, okay, here we are, we're experiencing the slave state, and now what do we have as an option? Well, our option is, at this point, is looking at it and say, do I continue to play there, or do I choose to step into my true essence, my true power, my true capability, my true design? And that is creator. Now, we all create. There's no way you cannot experience life and any forms of this life form or experience without creation. You can't have reality without creation. Yes, there is co-creation, and then there's individualized co-creation, but they intermingle. The co-creation will only take a certain share of how you experience your reality in comparison to how much your own creation dictates and shapes your reality, shapes your interaction, shapes your environment of what you give yourself the opportunity to play with. So when we're looking at that right now, the point has been that we have played this slavery role for a very long time. Now the opportunity is, as much as it may be super uncomfortable, even capable of maintaining it to a certain degree, we have the option. Do we support and continue to play being enslaved? Meaning that we follow what is being told to us from only a few selective, self-labeled gurus, authority figures, or governings, or whatever that is, or do we now step up and say, we are powerful creator beings, and I have the capacity to change my reality, change the world, change my interaction in any way, shape, or form? So like I was saying, the offering is now, can we extend the slavery? That means we still continue giving power to that and then live a smaller and smaller life. And I've talked about it before, where we can play a smaller and smaller life by just giving ourselves the power, giving our power, or what we create as the illusion that someone else, some group, some organization, or some sort, they know what's best for us, or the fact that they have to give us permission for us to do anything, or the fact that in some way or another has to follow a certain template. And this is the thing. So that is the option we have. And as we're unfolding into 2021, which we just started only a few days ago, we have that in our presence even more powerfully than ever before. Do we continue, or do we shift this? Now, many of us have been going through many preparations, many changes within ourselves. Not only our body construct, the upgrading of the human entity, the soul, and also our minds, but energetically and so forth. And I've talked about the fact that we have gone through some changes that were profound throughout the whole year, but we had some very significant changes that we're still in the middle of right now, and will not complete until the 12th of January, which is only a few days away, or maybe less than a week at this point. Yes, okay, I lose track of what days are what. So,
Tuesday.
yes, so we're looking at that part of it. So it's preparing us at this time very much so that we can reactivate our creator state. Now, a lot of people talk about manifestation and so forth, that we manifest and so forth. It's true, we manifest. Absolutely. We cannot be without manifestation. We cannot be without creation. Now, creation can be shaped in such a fashion so that we are creating something that is been shared or dictated for us. Because the thing is, we are all independent. We're all sovereign beings, even though it may not look that way because of the game and the setup that we've played. We all have free will. No matter how we look at, dice it, slice it, whatever you want to call it, we have the free will. The fact is, we have a main operating system that we've most likely haven't used very much of it throughout this lifetime and previous lifetimes for a very long time. So when we're looking at that, these changes that we're going through right now is really creating an adjustment within ourselves so that we go into that designed template of our original design. So there is a difference between manifestation and creation. I know I've covered it before, but I want to refresh it in your mind so you understand. Manifestation is when you are using your energy, your focus, your intent, whatever you want to call it, and also being in that state of seeing it, you're actually constructing a reality based on what is already created, that others have created, that is in the pool of the so-called collective creation, collective design. Now, the only thing that's interesting about the manifestation part, what is there as a base, what is in it that actually governs what we shape and design, was all designed when the inverted matrix with full throttle, when the inverted 3D and 2D was fully active. It still has a certain level of active, and we have an ego mind that actually works with that. So manifestation is old creation, recycled, reshaped, and so forth. It's not a higher level. Now, that does not mean it doesn't exist, because there have been people that have been shifting into creation mode much more effectively and tapping into higher resources and creating realities that are also within the pool of what we call the collective manifestation, the collective pool of designed way of life. So we're tapping into that. So as you notice, when we're talking about manifestation, people talk about manifestation. They want to manifest something, a relationship, stuff, money, whatever. They want to manifest stuff, manifest certain states of being. But if you look at it, dissect it, and so forth, you're looking at manifesting what already exists that others may be using or have used at one point or another. So basically, it's like, I want that too. That's basically what the manifestation part is. But that I want that too, again, shifts because of the fact that in most cases, if it interferes and slows down the process of moving forward for you individually, you may not get a portion or none or all of it, depending on how it's served. Sometimes getting a lot of it actually becomes a very powerful tool to really get you to the point of saturation. However, like I said, the manifestation is tapping into already creations of existence. But you have to understand, creations were created under different platforms, different frequencies, different consciousness, and everything was backwards, the invertedness part. Go ahead.
Boda has just suggested that ego is the desire manifestation. Abraham Hicks, she says, or he, that ego is the one that desires manifestation.
Correct. Good point.
So.
Good point. Yes. Well said. Thank you. So, yes, it's deep. I'm just... Looks like I'm peaking a lot here. But, okay, I just wanted to make sure I don't get the distorted sound. All right, so like as just said, that the manifestation part is really the ego's forte direction, because it wants to copy and have certain things a certain way. But you have to understand, the ego is only designed to work in its designed state in the inverted matrix, inverted 3D and 2D. Now, going into organic 3D and organic 5D, those two platforms, then the manifestation actually becomes, unless it's used to achieve saturation, it actually becomes something that slows things down, like an obstacle, but not quite what you can call an obstacle. Now, if our focus goes into manifesting what is a representation of that inverted world, which we are moving ourselves out of, then you may have a lot of distractions accordingly, and that will mean that your soul and other aspects of yourself, being the higher perspective, may intervene and may play a particular role to kind of throw you off track so that you do not get there, but at the same time possibly challenge you, and that happens very commonly, possibly challenge you to the degree where you reach a frustration and in a way of giving up for what it wants to manifest. Now, when we're talking about creating a new world, when we go into creation, creation is the most updated design. In this case, you're creating using imagination, creativity, and higher aspect of you. Now, that higher aspect of you brings in source essence, brings all the skill sets that it may have gained from previous incarnation on other planets, and also as the observer in non-form. But it also brings the skill sets of many of the soul families and oversoul that is connected with you. It has a lot of different resources. Now, if you want to create a new world, you can't stick to the old design. You really have to go and tap into that creator state of yours. Source, which we are that and is all that exists, is designed as we are as creators. It does not create the same. It's always expanding, adjusting, different angle points and so forth, because that is how it achieved higher and higher levels of its capability, essence, and so forth. That's what enlightenment is really becoming more enlightened, not only as the creator, but with the options to create even higher levels of them. Now, when we look at the universe, the galaxies, the solar systems, those are all creations. Each time a planet is retooled, or a solar system is retooled, or taken out of the equation, a new one that comes out, it's all about creation. It's not about manifestation. When we were retooled 15,000 years ago, when the planet was reseeded, when these human forms were made, it used resources of many different species, blended it and kind of tuned it to create something different, grander than already existed. So this is why, sometimes we look like we're designing new things that always supersede the next. Our technology is a reflection of that, even though it's not the closest reflection, because a lot of technologies are skewed anyways. But at the same time, you could see it's always advancing in a way to give us more of a grander aspect of what already has been created. So all universes, galaxies, solar systems, planets, physicalities, and all types of sentient beings and life forms and so forth, which we call life form at this point in time, are always elevating, increasing, expanding. But that's done through creation, not manifestation. Now, there is manifestations used sometimes in creating replications, where you want to replicate more versions of that, so you can say it's manifested. But the thing is, it's not 100% exactly the same anyways. It's always designed to always tweak one thing or another. This is why each generation is somewhat more advanced than the next. Now, as much as they start off as that, of course, all the ones that are playing here are trying to bring them down to that level that they had before, in regards to, okay, you got to be like us, You can't be outside of us. This is what all these crazy people, at least that's how it's labeled. I'm using that as for fun because in essence, a lot of times when you are more advanced or you're able to access a higher aspect that others may not, they deem you crazy. But what's happening is that you're a higher version. You have even more access, or you can see things a little differently. And that is the purpose, because we are choosing to upgrade our human experience, upgrade it in ways where we continue to advance in a much more powerful way to also offset some of the 10,000 years. And I know time is an illusion too, but for that period of time of that sequence where we played in that inverted stuff, where we actually, how can I call it? Played in that stuck state, if lack for better words at the moment. So when we're looking at, I'm just going to bring in, where did my thing go? There we go. So in the creation part, when we're looking at, when we are creating at this point in time, it's important for us to connect with ourselves, because there's something that I want to make clear. Educational systems, anything that you're learning, and take that as is. If you look at, let's use the educational system as an example. The educational system teaches the very same thing that's been taught for a long time with very minimal upgrades or variance. Why? Because what it's doing, it's actually programming, tuning the individuals going through the systems to look, feel, respond, and to think the same way. What that does is actually, in some benefits, you can say, okay, these are some of the factors I can use, but it requires not a complete copying. It's about going into that explorative, learning, creative aspect and be supported in that fashion. So if you look at it just a step back and you look at the educational system, it's conditioning everybody to think and feel and respond and to create a reality based on a certain platform with very minimal upgrades. And usually the upgrades in the educational system is way behind all of the discoveries that were made, because many of the discoveries are not allowed to go into that educational system. Look at the medical world. We have blossomed on so many ways using a mixture of different types of things, including energies and so forth. And if you go to the mainstream medical system, it is not even looked at. And it's not looking at holistically in any way, shape, or form. So it forces us to go into the other part. But even that has restrictions at this point. So if you're looking at it, it's saying, well, it's only cookie cutters and making everybody the same. So in fact, it tunes us in manifestation. Why? What happens? Because then we all do the same thing. Nobody questions any part of it. Now, that was part of the introduction of that control structure that was put in, and there's certain individuals and groups and so forth that have taken on that role, saying, oh, we're going to keep the consistency, and not only consistency, we're not going to allow advancements to go. So we have advancements in the medical field, mind-blowing what we have capacities and what has even been shared, not being used. We have it in energy, we have it in transportation, we have it in many, many, many services that exist. We have also technologies that will eliminate a lot of the requirements of us being enslaved in certain tasks that may be required as we go through the stages, and so that we are not enslaved in, financial and so forth, or even enslaved in the fact of, giving our time and resources and energy and capacities to some endeavor that may not be required or can be taken care of by some other technical advancements or mechanicalisms or whatever you want to call it at this point in time. So when we're looking at it and saying, well, okay, we've played this game of having governed, limited, restricted resources so that we all manifest the same. Now, for us to look at the world in the same viewpoint, same eyes, same programming, then the changes are going to be difficult. It's going to take time. It's going to be, in a way, when you're looking at it, it's going to go one way or another, and how long is it going to take? But not only that, that there's all these things applied to it as, oh, that's impossible, or that's never been done before, or anything of that nature. So if you're going to step into redesigning things, you have to go into that creative ability. You have to tap into your creator state, where no matter what's already existing, you're going to start looking way beyond with no restrictions. Imagination flourishes. You're going to explore and support or design things that actually support your higher state. The reason we're going through these changes is because we're choosing to upgrade not only our human experience, but our playground, but also how we interact and do so that we can actually be ourselves in the purest form as the contributor that we are in this advancement. And this is why you are here. So when it comes back to the question, why are you here? Well, instead of saying why, you are here to create the new world. Now, the foundation is there. The platform is there. Our capacities, our resources are there. But now we have to go into creator mode, go into creation, see that there are no limits, that we have much more resources. In fact, in a sense, when we're tapping into that, going into that creator state and creating, we're using resources from the depth of our imagination and our capabilities that transcends beyond this planetary component of playground, but also what the planet has to offer. So we're going into that, no longer playing this, because we've played this for a very long time. Look at your life. How much restrictions you've had to deal with. What you can do, what you can't do. What you can say, what you can't say. Who to follow, who not to follow. What is appropriate and what is not appropriate. What you can venture into or not. The moment you step outside of the box, because we've all, kind of set this box, anytime you step out of the box, you get knocked back in, or the fact that you get dragged in, or the fact that you get labeled as crazy or whatever it is. So in that regards, we've played this and being stuck for the longest time. But now that is the option, the choice that we have. We have this choice. It's being offered. It's being illuminated in any way, shape, or form within yourself. And that's one of the reasons we go through the purging phase that we are all going through, because we're letting go of what we deemed as our capacities, deemed as a way of life and so forth, which are all these replicated manifestations. Now, I can't say manifestations always stagnant. It does grow, but very minimal within confines, within restrictions, within limits. Once we break out of that, you can see there has been many, many creations, many, many technology advancements, many, many ways of life that is very supportive, very cooperative, that does not have polarity, that does not have survival, that does not have struggle, does not have to have pain and suffering for any advancement, but at the same time having freedom to express, to experience, to be in the body to the fullest degree, not to be in compartments that restricted us to be. Now, as I was saying, these technologies and so forth that are already available and have been suppressed will come to the surface. But that's only the beginning, because once we combine and start going into a cooperative and collaborative state, then we take what we already have achieved and put our resources there, and to advance it even further without the need of multiple replications and so forth. And when I mean about replication, many versions of the same thing competing with each other. It's about bringing all of the best of technologies and the best of capabilities and the best of opportunities using multiple facets of resources so that you can create something really spectacular which can just continue to expand and grow along the way. So, can we be a slave and creator at the same time? Good question. Yes. Is that true or is that a lie?
I think that's true.
Should I put no instead?
No.
No? So here we are. Can we be a slave and a creator at the same time? Well, first of all, even to create the slave idea, you need to create it. And you need to support that creation. And of course, it becomes manifestation after a while because it's just the way it is. You don't have to access any further levels of creation in that enslavement. So, same time. Well, how about if we take full value, face value, I think that they call it, face value the information we have been given, the information that we have had access to, and with those limits, and then drilling in all the time, or being bombarded with this is the way of life and you cannot deviate from that, you can't grow out of that, then guess what happens? We get conditioned to create not only very minimal amount, but to create different versions of the same thing. So really, we're stuck in manifestation, but we are creators. See, we cannot exist without being a creator or manifester at this point. One and the two are about the same, but one is more expanded than the other. But the thing is, because this all comes back to the free will too and all of that stuff, because you can plug all that in. As a creator, you have free will to create, okay? But that can't be taken away. Your creative ability cannot be taken away. Yes, you can dim it right down to almost nothing. Really can't, because the manifestation kicks in to kind of compensate for it. But at the same time, you can bring even the free will. You can feel, hey, if you're playing the slave role, how much free will do you think you have? You may think you have zero. So you could say, no free will. Oops. Okay.
Just do it. Just right, and then it'll go away.
Okay. No free will. Well, that's not true. You have free will. Always have free will. Never be taken away from you. But you can be convinced how to use your free will. You can be convinced how much of the free will to use. And that's the same thing with what we're creating here. We can be conditioned and programmed, which we all have, to create a certain way of life, a certain reality that kind of matches with that co-creation and so forth. So yes, you can create a slave experience. You can create really anything. So what happens? Look how powerful we created something. A lot of it is old, okay? But look at what we've gone through for 2020 and now into 2021. This whole thing about the C-19 and all of that stuff and all the restrictions and all of that stuff. Well, we have pushed things even further. We had to use creation there. Collective programmed creation to create an environment that you don't question things. An environment where you can stop yourself from doing anything and everything to be super restricted. That has never really been achieved to the degree that we're experiencing worldwide without really having an applicable reason or condition. See how creative it is? That's create, which some people call pandemic or whatever, planet. That's create. So that's convince everybody to use their creative abilities to create more more restrictions. So let's convince them to make a box this big, and then next month a box this big, and then just keep going. So here we are. Box after box. We just convince them to use their creator capacities to put themselves in a smaller box. Now, of course, what's happening, these powerful energies, your self-awareness, the consciousness upgrades and so forth are starting to realize it, because you know something? At first, we don't even realize it or even try, because we're so afraid that if we come out of this box, guess what's going to happen? We can die. We can get sick. We can be maimed. Something could happen to us.
You could be put in jail.
You could be put in jail. And then you have bars. That one's even more colorful, because now you can be in a box that has bars. My artistic work here. You can be, and you can hold on to those bars. You can look, hey, this is pretty cool. Right? Fantastic. So that's the thing. So that's how it's played out. Because you have to understand, it doesn't matter who's in what position or not. It doesn't matter if they're authority, they're governmental, they're elites, they're this, they're that. What you have to keep in mind, we always have the free choice. Do I take what they're sharing and use it to create the environment, personally and collectively, which will involve some manifestation, or, excuse me, or in one way or another, I choose not to. I'm not going to give any power to it, because it really is not for me to support that any longer, because we are moving forward. So it's really what's happening is we never lost the creator part. We're just shifting our creator capacities to create an environment that does not support the slavery part. Oops, this keeps moving. It does not support the slavery part, the restrictions, the limits, the boxes. Now, this is the other thing. When we start dissolving these boxes, there's going to be a period of time where you've been in a box for so long, you may be afraid to go fully out. I'm not saying the ones that are listening right now, there may be some. You're going to find that, okay, I'm just going to venture it a little bit. I'm going to step out of the box. I'm just going to go in the little bigger box, but I still have to be in the box because it's still unsafe. It's okay to go out, but I still have to wear certain things. Or it's okay to go out, but I still have to be careful because, you know, and then do the routine. So as you keep going, then you come out of the next box. Just understand, you could pop the whole thing, but now you're expanding this. You know what's the interesting thing about all of this? Kimberly, I'm sure you recognize it. People are easier to go into the box than to come out. Did you ever notice that? You scared the heebie-jeebies out of somebody, and they'll restrict and make their walls small as possible. I'll go in that box because it's safe. This is my box. But then you tell them it's safe to come out of the box. It's no longer. And I know the safe thing is just a ploy here, but we're going to use that because that's a lot of people refer to that. It's safe to come out of the box. You take out that box and they're going, I don't know. Like this whole thing with them face masks. Okay? If they said tomorrow, hey, we don't need any more because it doesn't work, or the fact that the C19 is gone, or whatever, or it's mutated and it doesn't work, but whatever. It's going to take a long time for many other people, I'm not saying everybody, to walk around without it. Now, unless you got into a point of awareness where you're willing to just drop it like nothing. But what happens for a lot of people, you will see they will still maintain that pattern. And I've seen people coming in from other parts of the world because of certain things. They're still maintaining it because they feel unsure. So right now, you know, as much as the restrictions say, okay, you can go out, it's safe, whatever it is, you're going to have still a lot of people going, oh, I don't know, I'm going to still be cautious, I'm going to still wash my hands 450 times each day, and I'm still going to wear 1 or 2 or 3 of these things, and I'm going to be careful not to touch anything or whatever it is, because the fact that once that's come in and you've now established a certain fear from, the ego is going to be very powerful to kind of remind you of that. Go ahead. That doesn't happen with you, right?
I know. I was just going to say, because the media, they've really established and programmed people quite nicely, and there's been lots of fear put behind it. So it's just peeling back all those layers again.
You
Can't hear me?
do you have it on?
Yeah, I have it on. Can people hear me?
Nope. You want to try the other one? And I'm going to turn on the volume for that one.
Can you hear me now? Is it working? Yes. Somebody said yes. Is it working?
Okay, try.
Hello, hello.
Okay, it's working somewhat.
Okay. Oh, I was just going to say, we've been so programmed. Like, people have been, like, high-powered, programmed for the last year about being afraid.
Yep.
And so it's just, like, hard for people to just drop that without deprogramming themselves.
Exactly, and that's the thing, is that we create layers and layers and layers because we are exposed to so much content, and it's fear-based. And remember, fear is very powerful because we've been programmed for that. Our true natural state has no fear, but our programmed version, the ego, fear, will create a lot of stories around that your life's going to end or something's going to go bad or anything of that nature.
That's okay.
It's okay? Okay. That something's going to happen to you or something of that nature along the way. So there's a lot of, like you said, the media and other resources and so-called experts and the science or whatever it is, it creates such a realism. It could be a completely fabricated story. No truth whatsoever, which most of it is. But anyways, I didn't say that. Fabricated or not, you tell people over and over again about this, and not only do they believe it, they create a reality around it. And this goes back to the same thing. You can be the creator and the slave at the same time because you convince, through media, through all different so-called information that is shared, to use that creative ability to reinforce that story. Go ahead.
Okay, so Jane is asking, so how do we uncreate these restrictive energies to get out of the box? Yes, I choose freedom, yet, like you say, the collective are right there to stop you. So how do you do this? To create something new? By keeping a high vibration, by challenging every restriction, by being invisible as you vibrate higher?
Well, it's a combination of all of that. Now, the thing is, it's not so much challenging the system and fighting the system. It's a matter of seeing beyond and seeing it for what it is. It's just a system. The system is trying to keep you, or in this case, reflecting an old version of reality, an old version of life. Okay? So the point here is the work starts with all of us, where you get to the point of neutrality. Now, neutrality is hugely powerful. You know, and I know I get people saying, well, if we don't fight the system, that the system's not going to change. I said, don't fight anything. Get to the point of neutrality, saying there's no good, there's no bad, there's nothing wrong with what's playing out. However, in the state of neutrality, you are now not only the observer, you're accessing a higher consciousness of yourself or a higher state of yourself. Then you can say, okay, that no longer serves. What action do I take to put an end to it or in some way create a shift in it? So you're going to take action, but you're not going to fight anything. You're coming in from, so even a demonstration, or in this case, a gathering of some sort, making it known, is a peaceful one rather than rioting or anything of that nature, or the fact that you have to fight the system, because anything you fight fights back. Anything you put a lot of attention to try to take down, okay, will get more resistant. We'll end up getting stronger. So it's not about that. Is you bring it to the level of obsolescence by just seeing it that no longer serves. We are no longer giving it power, because the fear feeds it. The fact that it has power over you, the idea that it has power over you or over everybody on the collective, gives it power. Because there's only a small portion of people that got programmed, that are doing the programming part that, a lot of people have taken on. So yes, holding a certain higher vibration, tapping into that 0-point neutrality state, is like, okay, it's a playground. These are all playmates. They're going to go play there. Great. How can I play within here where I'm bringing a higher consciousness? You're not going in to change anybody, fix anything of that nature, but you're going to now not only see things, but when you're communicating and so forth, you're going to do certain things that will reflect that higher state of being. So for example, if you need to go into a store and, there's a requirement that you have to wear a mask, instead of going in there and rebelling, you can walk in there from a higher state with really not paying attention to you getting caught or they're going to stop you or something like that, and walk in and be yourself in that state. Now, at some point, if they come up to you and say, hey, you can't come in here, or the fact that you got to leave if you don't put a mask on, then you can say, oh, okay, you guys are really giving power into that. So you can put the mask on, but you can smile and be happy within the game, but see everybody as the game, not judging anybody, but just see it as the game. And then at some point you will feel where you're not getting any resistance, that you can start taking it down. But you're not giving power to the fear or the so-called authority component, or the fact of right, wrong, good, bad. And this is the thing. As you're in that neutral state, what happens? You become invisible. Invisible means because you're in a frequency that they don't notice you. They're going to notice each other, and they may see you as a shadow walking by that, looks real, but at the same time, they're not going to pay attention to what you wear, not wearing, or anything of that nature, if you're abiding to something or not. If you're being noticed, then there's still stuff for you, and then you want to take a look at what's going on with you so that you can, clear out all that stuff because it no longer serves you. But that's how you create change, is not going into the neutrality. Neutrality equals observation. Observation is also connecting with your higher state and looking at whatever's there, and instead of demonizing, judging it, or fighting with any part of it, you're basically saying, oh, okay, this is what we've co-created, this is what we're playing, this is what we put in our power and energy into. So now how do I change this? How do I shift it? Starting with myself, and how do I communicate? How do I hold that energy? And you hold it in that state of neutrality. Go ahead.
Voda is asking, how can we access neutrality if our body reacts in a fear-based way, but we consciously aren't reacting to it, if that makes sense? So your body's reacting one way, you're trying to hold the consciousness of neutrality, but your body's still having a reaction?
Yes. So the reason that your body is a reaction, because you got a locked-in emotion and response mechanism that's still in the body. The body is not designed to react in that way. But it can get easily programmed, and most of us are. So you're going to have that reaction. So if you're having a reaction, give yourself the opportunity to experience the reaction. Be present with the reaction. Don't, separate from the reaction or separate from whatever you're experiencing at that point in time. And you can even talk to your body and say, hey, it's okay. We can feel it. We can do it, but we don't have to even hold on to it or whatever it is. So each time you do that, that reactive changes, because some people are afraid of certain bugs, or afraid of certain authority figures or whatever, or even heights or something of that nature. When you give yourself the opportunity to experience it, to feel it, and to be present with it, you can actually look at it and be, part of that experience, and the body will relax a little bit more and make it more present what that may represent. It may have an image, it may have a certain memory of something that may have locked it in. Because a lot of times the body, yes, we collect some of those default programs from the lineage or family dynamics, but some of it is our own stuff that we have experienced or triggered within ourselves that through certain events that played out that got labeled or defined or something of that nature, and it locks into the body. So the point here is, if you have a fear about something, take the time to kind of quieten your mind and connect with that fear. Connect with, now, if you can't do it on the spot, keep track of it and say, okay, we're going to go and play with that. So we say, okay, I was in the store today and I saw these guys with, with certain outfits and so forth, with little funny badges with numbers on it and so forth, and I got all tightened up and so forth. So see yourself seeing that all over again, and feel that sensation within yourself. Give it full permission to play out within yourself. And then you can ask your body, I love you and everything else, but can you tell me what's going on here? Why were you reacting? And by having that communication, and if it says something, just say, yeah, that's how it was, but we don't have to be concerned. We're creators here. We're able to design any part of it. And we can choose to be invisible too at this point. Not because we have to be afraid of it. We don't go into invisibility to be afraid of it. You go into, that happens naturally when you're in a higher vibration anyway. So that in fact that you don't have to connect with that. Because you have to understand, co-creation is very interesting. Because we individualize our creation, but we intermingle and we co-create with others as long as we're on that bandwidth. So if we're not, we may only catch certain parts of the bandwidth. We're not able to fully interact. So you can see some people, because of their state and some of the changes they went through in their lives, that they're not entangling themselves in the same way they were in playing the old games. Why is that? Because they shifted within themselves that is no longer applies, and then because their vibration has increased, that they're not at that range where they would normally engage in that. So that's kind of how it plays out around that. Okay, so I think I covered a lot of this. How about creating our own slavery instead of believing that someone else has the power to enslave? So if we have to shift it and say, instead of giving power and belief to the idea that somebody else can enslave us, how about creating our own slavery? But that's exactly what's happening. This is why I put that point there. We are convinced to create our own slavery. We are convinced to fit within that box. We are convinced, and the sense is we're being conditioned, programmed, and getting the feedback so that, okay, this is where I need to be. I need to be in this box. I need to act this way. I got to be whatever it is, right? So it's not that anybody has power over you, because no one ever has power over you. And I know you can argue with me with that, because you can say, hey, my parent had power over me, or when I was a kid, or that the bully down the street, or the fact that my boss has power over me. Well, no, they don't. They can play a particular role, any of them, but you have the freedom to internalize that and say, okay, I'm going to allow them to have the power, and I'm going to have whatever plays out because of that role that they choose to take on. Very different. Because the thing is, you have to understand, you have free will. You also are a creator. You're the only one that can decide what experience you have or don't have. Now, there's two versions of that. There's the ego version, which is very different than your higher self, which is, the higher self is made up of not only just the soul. You're basically looking at a consciousness created within the mind. You're talking about your interdimensional soul, your human entity, which is a localized soul, and then you have the body, which is an extension of Gaia. All of those are contributors to that. And the ego is very much outside of it. So you see, you have a lot more resources from a higher perspective than the lower perspective. So when you're looking at the whole idea of how much power I give to whatever I'm going to experience. It's really us deciding how much are we going to play with whatever is being presented. So as much as we think that we don't have a free choice to design, in fact, is not true. That's an illusionary programming that came about. So in regards to your experience, you are free to say, am I going to engage with this? Am I going to have this person play this particular role with me? Am I going to have them play a very polarized negative role or a victimizer role? You have that choice. Now, of course, at times, like I was saying, you have the two parts. The ego is going to say, no, they're the bully, they're the victimizer, you're just the victim. And you're going to create a lot of stories around that when it comes to the ego. The other part saying, no, we're engaged with this to give us an opportunity to kind of not only have the experience, but clear out certain programs and so forth, or older states of being, and also create a transformation, upgrade within ourselves. So it's a very different viewpoint that comes about. So when you truly understand our true nature, that we are creating and no one has power over you, then the thing is, we can agree and accept certain things so that we create our own slavery rather than the power of enslavement. Because look at it this way. You could say, well, look, there's all these authorities that dictate how life is going to be, what we can or cannot do. Well, what's happened there? Realistically, who's supporting that? It's another aspect of you. If we turned around and said, hey, we're not going to play there, which more and more people are doing every day, including people in positions that have to, are dictated to support whatever that narrative may be, that are coming to the realization is, wait a minute here, I am no longer even agreeing to this any longer, so I'm not going to support it. I'm going to be with the people. I'm going to be with others that are, wanting that freedom, that playfulness, that level that is our natural state, rather than, they may not use those words, but that's the thing. So that creation and even the enforcement of that enslavement is diminishing, and that's what's happening right now. Now, the intensities that we are experiencing right now, the realism, the accentuation of these polarities and so forth, there's a purpose behind that. And I've talked about it many times, so I'm just going to remind you. Is because it's pushing us to the point where you break out of this idea that someone else has the power to enslave, and you go into the realization, even though it's there, we may not realize it, the realization that, hey, I've been creating my own slavery and I have the freedom to choose to or not. And right now, I'm choosing out of that. Now, of course, collectively, you may still see a lot of that playing around, but like I said, you as your vibration increases, as you go into neutrality, a lot of that won't exist to the same degree where it's in your face or that you have to entangle, but at the same time, it will create a powerful ripple effect to change all aspects of it. So, I won't cover that any further. I'm sure we'll get back to it. As we become more conscious, okay? As we become more conscious, we realize that we have more power to shape our personal and collective realities than we have given credit. Look at what's happening. Instead of being a victim and saying, I have no power and I got to follow whatever, as your consciousness expands, as you look at all of us, at one point or another may have felt powerless, at one point or another felt subject to whatever role players were there. But as your consciousness shifts, you realize that you ultimately have the power. You're the one that can shape and redesign every part of it. More power to shape our personal and collective reality. because we've always had it. But the realization, this is why this advancement in consciousness plays out very powerfully, because then you become the master of your creation, the master of the co-creation. And when I say master, is that you master it, which you already had. You just become aware of it so that you actually end up utilizing it. Go ahead.
Someone's asking how to create a motivation to start the creation, because we are programmed from birth must to have a reason to motivate us to start any creations.
Yeah, so that's a very good point, because we got conditioned that we need to have a stimulus. We have to have a purpose. We have to have a motivation. Sometimes the motivation is pain or gain, what is that narrow linguistic thing? Pain or pleasure. Pain or pleasure, right? We have to have pleasure or pain to stimulate. Again, that's a program. So, and that's been perpetuated for a long time. Is it our true nature? Absolutely not. It never has been and never will be. However, what we're looking at here is that when you actually step into that opportunity to create, those things are no longer required. So in essence, if you truly feel, okay, it's time for me to create, I am now going to go into a quiet space or state or whatever you want to call it. You're going to bring a piece of paper and pen with you or something to write on, and you're going to connect with that. Okay, what am I ready to create now? And as things start to visualize or thoughts come in, jot it all down. Write it down, just continue going through that. That will require a little bit of practice because we haven't used it for so long. Now, there are people that have been using it for a long time. I know that some of us are very much more open to that creative ability to be able to utilize it. Now, some, of course, the artists and so forth have used a portion of that creative abilities to create whatever it is. So the key is to practice to say, let me tune in. How does the world feel and look like to me? Not what's currently here, the world that I am choosing to have around me, the world that I choose to play with, the world that actually supports who I am. And then let your imagination, so you can close your eyes, focus on the breath, get yourself quiet, and then allow your imagination to play out. And you can jot all that down, or you can record it, whatever it is, that what you're seeing and so forth. And then you can actually, once you've done that, and you're going to do it every so often, you're going to notice that it's going to continue to expand. You review what you've written. You're going to review what you've acknowledged. And then see, how can I plug this in? How can I utilize this? What would this support me to experience versus not having it? So that's the thing. You're breaking the pattern of non-creation. You're breaking the pattern of just going into what we call manifestation of whatever is there. You're going to break the pattern of feeling that you are powerless, that you're disempowered, that you know, that's the thing. And it's a practice. You don't have to have the most profound thing. So if you tune in and it's just the slightest thing, it's like, okay, great, celebrate that. And then when you do it again, and just keep putting the pieces together. So, and the creativity also serves in a way where you're not limited to the restrictions that we've played with. So you have to go into your mind and say, okay, how do I go into that higher level? How do I access that rather than what I've been playing with up to this point in time? Because a lot of us get caught up in playing within a certain level, a certain barrier. There's a limit, a high limit and a low limit in a sense, and really not going into that state. So it's about dissolving those limits, and you're going to see that it will expand. So use that as a good starting point, because we all have it within ourselves, this knowing, this vision of what the world looks like that you are co-creating within yourself, or creating within yourself, that's going to be part of the co-creation. Remember, all of us are a piece of the puzzle. All of us carry a piece of that world within ourselves. We are all source. We've just created the illusion that we're not, and that in some way it's separate from us. And of course, religion has played a very powerful role where it actually created, accentuated separation to there's a deity that is a master over you versus the poor you that is just a byproduct of that creation, and with all the faults and whatever else that you were conditioned to believe. So use the imagination to creativity. Even if you don't go to the meditation, just get into that, what people call the zone. It's just look at the piece of paper and just see what comes through you. And as you start, more comes. And I've done this exercise a long time ago. Sometimes when I have to put something together, or even the write-up around it, I have no idea what I'm going to write yet. So I just put a couple of words in. And the next words come in, and before you know it, a sentence, then a paragraph, and then so forth, and stuff starts to flow. And this is how you exercise that creative ability. And you can start with something small. Say, I just want to change this part. And it's great. So neutrality is important. So you say there's a situation in your life, okay? And you're saying, I want to look at this. So you look at it. You tune into it and say, okay, this is my scenario that's playing out right now. How would I like to see it? I'd like to see it this way and that way. Okay, great. How can I actually start to apply certain parts of it? Remember that nothing is rigid and there are no limits. The ego mind's going to say that there's limits. Oh, you never achieved it before, so there's no way you can do it. Oh, other people are creative, you're not. It's all part of that inverted, keep you kind of locked up in that box type of operating system. Because you have to understand, the ego is an operating system. It is artificial intelligence that learns, grows, and so forth, but is only designed to support the inverted matrix, the inverted world, the inverted 3D, 2D. Okay? So you have to understand, that's where it's coming from. When you understand that where it's coming from, you're going to give it less power, because that only represents the old world, or represents what the collective world that's, we're, dissolving at this point in time. So you want to tap into that higher aspect. You can put your attention in your heart or your solar plexus. You can communicate with your body, whatever part of it is, but just write the stuff down. That helps you very powerfully to exercise that creative ability that you have within yourself. Okay? So, as I said, as you become more conscious, you realize more how powerful you are, then you're not afraid, and you're not only not afraid, you're not limited to, oh, I got to wait till the right government comes in, I got to wait for the right people, I got to wait until people give us the okay to experience my life, or anything of that nature. When you become more conscious, you go, hey, wait a minute, I am the master creator here. Everything is a version of me. And I now can shape it in any way I choose. I may introduce certain parts of it a little bit at a time, but I will expand it. Very different when you're accessing that higher level of consciousness. The more you're aware of who you are, the more you get to exercise and use your capabilities. And all of us have come in with pretty profound capabilities, which we haven't been really using. Some of us have started to use it. Some have used a portion of it for a long period of time. This is why when we go through change and we become more conscious and what people call spiritual or anything of that nature, then guess what? Then parts of their lives change. The importance of where they put their focus on, their time, their resources, or anything of that nature starts to shift. And what they do and don't do changes because they're becoming more conscious of who they are and the power that they have. Okay. We got a whole bunch of stuff here. Okay, so, some of the stuff we've already covered, so I don't have to replay. How about being convinced to create our own slavery for us to agree to play the slave role? Yeah, we can, and we have all. Listen, we've come here and said, you knew in advance how the playground was. You knew what was available. You knew the possibilities of getting lost in the game. You knew that there was other playmates that got lost in the game that could easily convince you to get lost in the game. You know that there's all these so-called control structures and polarization and so forth. You chose to come here. Why did you choose to come here? Because you wanted to come in and see what you can do. You cannot fail. We can throw that out the window. There's no such thing as failing. I don't care what anybody tells you. There is nothing about failing. You can't fail. You can create. You can have certain experiences. You may have different outcomes than you intended, but that's still an experience. That is still an outcome, and you learn from it. You grow from it. You see, oh, okay, instead of saying, oh, I failed, how can I twist it, shape it, redirect it in such a way where I will have more of an effect, more of a result that matches what my intent is. That's all. And it's not about fighting it. It's about really tweaking along the way. So here we are. We agreed to play the slave role, to see that restrictions, to have that restriction within ourselves so that you now can realize what's available. You can see how difficult it may look because it looks just that way. You can see how deep you can get lost in it and then say, okay, how now, using my creative ability, how can I reshape it? How can I redesign it? How can I upgrade it? And so forth. It doesn't matter if you make no impact whatsoever. The moment you've had all of those sequences and you left, and because you choose to leave, whatever, and come back another time or another place, you've actually gained experience. It doesn't matter. You didn't fail. You just saw how it can get really lost in the game. So if you're going to go to an amusement park, in a way you want to get lost in the amusement park. You know, because you want to have the experience what the amusement park offers. That's what Playground Earth offers. But then we're not here right now just only to get lost. We came here to upgrade it. So and the fact is that you're going there and see, okay, you know, you go to the amusement park and say, okay, this is what we have here. Well, we can upgrade that ride. We can change this part. We can do that because we're going to bring it up to, you know, a higher level of what we've been using up to this point in time because it's time to upgrade it. That's all. So I've already said it before coming here. We all have known how the game was, what the possibilities were, how easy it may have been to get lost and so forth. But you came here. You did not make a mistake. You didn't take a wrong turn. You didn't get on some ship, I'm just saying that as playfulness, and land it. Scotty did not beam you on the wrong planet. Okay? First of all, the body's always been here, knows exactly, and it chose to re-embody again. The human entity is the soul that plays on planet Earth. Said, hey, let's give it another shot. The soul that's multidimensional, that has come from a different resource or another compartment within the same resource, that has come here, which is interdimensional, and says, okay, let me go play there. Let me see what I can do. Plus, you know, we get what we call spiritual news. That's a cool place. You want to go there because if you can make progress there, man, you get really a lot of different medals. I'm just playing with that, but in a sense, it's that interesting, that colorful, that amazing to go there. So you knew all of that. You chose to be here, and you're here for a very powerful purpose. Now, the other thing I want to add, the reason that you're here now, which we've all, or not, I shouldn't say all, but the majority of us have come many times before. Each time it provided a different opportunity, a different experience, but this opportunity is quite unique because we are going through a powerful transformation. This is something that has been orchestrated in such a way that it's to be part of this ride is pretty freaking amazing. Okay, so regardless, you're here. Have things changed? Oops. Have things changed, and are they changing even more? Absolutely. Progress of any change, even the souls coming in with the intent to make an impact, did not come in with the same intent. They said, oh, I'm going to go have an experience and, you know, make an adjustment. Throw my 2 cents in there. Just saying. that is very different. And the changes from before were minimal in comparison to now. So what's happening now? Things have changed, absolutely. Many upgrades, many opportunities have come about. And they're changing even more, and they're changing even faster. They're changing more profoundly than before. This is an indication that we collectively made an agreement. And the collectively does not only stop with the planet. It's collectively in the solar system. There are other inhabitants on all the other planets. There are also the collective involving the galaxy, specifically our quadrant, which is also linked to the other 3 quadrants, and then our universe. So that collective has agreed to really accentuate and move things much more quickly. For us to get stuck for a long period of time, it's not part of what we've constructed. And that is why we're moving a lot faster. Has our role shifted in some way? Absolutely. One was to come and play. One came to learn, so we came to play, we came to learn, we came to become more enlightened, we came to be spiritually rich. We're still doing that. But what did changed? Many of us are here to contribute in a big way, to bring a specific frequency and really harness it and increase it along the way, to bring in higher consciousness, to use our creative ability to the next level so that we can redesign this whole human experience and also our planetary experience, what we call the playground, the schoolyard, or anything of that nature that is referred to as this playground here. Now, our roles are changing because many of us, took a less active role and now are shifting into a more active role. More are shifting into, okay, now it's for me to blossom, for me to really play a powerful role. That role can be shifting your energy first and foremost. Second of all, clearing out all your programs, stories, belief systems, labels, definitions, perceptions that were all created within that inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D. And even if you didn't have that much time to expose yourself to really get deeply programmed, we're also, you may have taken on many of the stuff from the lineage, from past lives or of your family dynamics and even your family dynamic. So you're taking it on. So your role has shifted in some way to be able to be more effective in unfolding our world, unfolding our new world. Okay. Our old agreements still in effect. Now, there are many of us that have made agreements. See, do I have any more? Nope. That's pretty good. Oops. Now I lost my thing here. All right. Many of us made agreements to come here to play a specific role, and the agreements may involve other participants. Many of us have made agreements so that we stay and play a minimized role for a period of time. Many of us have, come in here originally to kind of balance what we used to call karma, or a lot of people still give power to that, where, the polarizing, but all of that stuff has changed. So a lot of these are, well, did we drop there for a while?
Just for a second.
Okay.
But it's coming back on.
Okay, great. We had a little glitch with the internet.
Right now.
Okay. So anyways, we're back to what I was saying. What was I saying?
I wasn't
Oh, you weren't paying attention. Okay.
We were talking about
All right, the agreements. Yes.
Yeah.
So regarding the agreements, so if you chose to play a role with certain participants in that sort, now those things are not adhered. So even playing a smaller role or anything of that nature is no longer in effect in the way it was before. So these are the things that have shifted within ourselves so that we're not bound to any agreements. Everything is flexible. So if you even agree to stay a certain time, you have the freedom to leave. If you only chose to stay a certain time, you're free to stay longer. Now, these agreements exist from a physical perspective, a human entity perspective, and a soul perspective, but at the same time, they always align, so they all support each other in one way or another. The reason these adjustments have happened is so that we have a lot more freedom and able to use our creative ability, and we're not restricted to minimize our creative ability just because we had certain agreements. Those agreements are no longer in effect. Now, there are some agreements that we may hold on to because we felt that it's important for us, and that is to come in and play a very specific role on the next stage. And we are on that next stage, and there will be more stages unfolding. So that's kind of how it works with that. Was there any questions, or I'm just going to do
one question. You can.
the other mic?
Okay, so Jane was asking, through your own perspective, what is the ratio of those who are creative?
Okay, we're back on. All right, I can see it. All right, sorry, the internet's acting up, so we kind of warned you, but we were hoping that it would stay live strongly. Anyways, you were saying about, oh, right, there it's back. Okay, all right. Sorry, guys, I didn't continue talking because I'm paying attention to when the internet drops so that you don't lose anything. If the recording's really bad, then I'll upload a clean copy because I am recording it on 2 devices at the moment at the same time. Continues to shift. Some people start to go outside of this box, but they're still creating within the box itself, but now it's an expanded box. As they continue, they'll start to go outside of this box and then the other box. Now, yes and no, because what's happening is people in certain states of being will be outside the box. Then at other times, they will find themselves back in the bigger box, and then something gets triggered and you can step in the next box or the next box, but it's temporary. Okay, so you can still walk out and then walk out completely so that there are no boxes whatsoever. So now, right now, people playing out of the boxes, it's like 15% of where we're at. 100% out of the box is basically less than 2%. And if you're talking about 100% all the time outside the box, where there's no reflection of being in the box itself, then it's less than 1%. Now, that's currently, but the thing is, we're already powerfully impacting that because there are more that are going in and out, but at the same time, more of them are expanding further and further. So, and then there's not a dependency or reliance to the box itself, per se. So, that kind of gives you a feel of that. Now, remember, anyone that's outside the box is already very, very powerful in the sense of how much impact it has to the collective. So it really shakes it up in a way where, a lot of the restrictions that may have been really strong before starts to weaken. Now, what I wanted to say is that with all these energies coming through, all these powerful pulses, reactivations within ourselves, the adjustments within ourselves, more and more people are noticing the boxes. More and more people are choosing to step outside the box. Like I said, you can go in and out until you get to a point of grounding that you no longer have a requirements of the box. Then you're outside the box 100%, and then you can create. The more you practice in using your imagination, your creation, that part of it, it's going to create outside of the boxes. And each time we do that, it allows us to see beyond the boxes and then to start to create outside the boxes. You start to experience yourself outside the boxes. These all play a role. Go ahead.
Okay, there's just one more question.
Yep.
Oh, it's a combination. There's 2 questions, but they're both similar.
Okay.
Can we still receive the codes from the sun, even the sun covered by thick clouds? Or must we stay indoor all the time? And and someone else was wondering how chemtrails blocking out the sun keep the codes from us, or do we still receive them?
Okay. The clouds and the chemtrails and so forth can reduce the intensity of the sun coming in. However, the codes are still coming through. So exposing yourself to the outdoors, especially through the eyes, and I'm not saying stare at the sun or anything like that, just the fact that you're outside and all that light comes in. But if you're indoor, you're also getting some of it because you got windows and whatever else. But being outside is the most powerful. Yes, I mean, a lot of the chemtrails that have been put into place was not only to create, toxins and whatever else that minimizes our capacity, but at the same time, it also played another role. And that other role was to diminish the amount of sunlight, the amount of the stronger frequencies, because it's not just only us. The sun shining on the planet helps upgrade the planet. All sentient beings go through upgrades. And as they go all through upgrades, their resident frequency increases. So we're surrounded with more of those frequencies. Even if you're not experiencing it directly, you're getting it through the food, through the air, through the environment, the water, and so forth, because it's receiving those codes, it's receiving the energy, especially water. Water is very flexible in holding certain frequencies, but the fact that you're exposing. So is there a restriction? Yes, there is. It's not stopping it, but it's reducing its capacity and so forth. So if you're able to expose yourself to much more sun, then you will receive more of those codes. Now, just because you're receiving more codes does not mean that you can utilize it all at once, because you're going through a process of how. Because even if the code's coming in, you're the one that's going to activate what you're going to use. Go ahead.
Do sunglasses reduce our exposure to the higher frequencies?
They do. The sunglasses do. Try to use them as minimal as possible. Allow your eyes to get adjusted to it, because a lot of that light goes out. I'm not saying looking at the sun, but I'm just saying the fact that everything is shining, whatever else, because it's all reflecting the sun's rays and so forth, and sometimes even the water. The reason the sunglasses came in, yes, okay, so it puts less strain on the eyes, but the thing is, it's not. Your eyes will adjust to it and be able to take more of that frequency. This idea that the sun is damaging, the sun is going to, that was all created, and especially the sunscreens and so forth, to minimize those spectrums of light coming in, and also the body to respond. Now, if you haven't been exposed, like if you've used a lot of sun blockers and whatever else, or haven't been exposed to the sun, don't go out there for hours and just exhort. No, you have to introduce it so your body adjusts to it. And once it's adjusted to it, because the idea of you have to be afraid of it because it causes cancer and whatever else. Well, it doesn't. In actual fact, it does the opposite. However, and this is scientifically, medically, and whatever else, they've noticed that the people that are more indoors and have minimal exposure to the sun, or are exposed to the sun through windows or whatever it is, are the ones that would have more susceptibility to skin cancers and whatever else that they put a lot of power into. So it's just allowing your body to recondition itself to the exposures of the sun. And, so not using the sunglasses unless it's absolutely because it's, you have a lot of glare and you have to drive or something of that nature, and it's going to impair, then yes, absolutely use it. Or if it's really, just adjust to it, because what happens is your eyes adjust and it lets all these spectrums go in. It really helps with the brain. It really helps with the frequencies in the body. And the same thing with the skin. The skin is actually absorbing those energies, and also actually allows you to use a lot of the stuff that we consumed, so that it can be used as energy, and it can be used as a way to rebuild the body. There are medical studies, and there are medical things that they used to do where, when people, say certain groups of people or large amount of people were exposed to ailments of some sort, there were hospitals that were outside. They had indoor, but they would bring their patients outside all the time. They were in a sunroom or something of that nature, where they were exposed to high frequency light. And they found that they would recover a lot quicker. Their body would heal faster, like we want to use it, or it would adjust, because the energies of the sun were very, very supportive to changing the state of the response of the cells and the frequency within the body and so forth, and harnessing ailments and so forth would not be supported in the same way. Having a sanitized, blocked room and so forth, they found that it actually causes, and then poor quality food and whatever else, which is your typical environment of hospitals at this point in time on the conventional side, is less than conducive. So if you can get out of there as quickly as possible, most people try to do just that. But the thing is, this has been done back, 50, 60 years now, where people were exposed, but they don't do that much anymore. Now, there are some holistic places that do expose you to much more of the sun, because it does support your body's restoration, your body's frequency and so forth. Was there anything else? Okay. So guys, thank you for playing again today. So the question that comes back to our wrap-up, which that was the wrap-up. Are you here to create or to be a slave? We've had the slavery game, and we're here to utilize more of our creativity. You want to create a new world? Use your creative ability. Co-create with others and so forth. But the thing is, use your imagination, use that creative ability that you have. We all have it. It doesn't matter, even if you didn't utilize it for the longest time. I've heard sometimes, oh, well, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, there's no tricks to do it. The fact is, if you allow your imagination to go and experience, yes, now you got to pay attention to the imagination. Sometimes the imagination has a default, because of the fact that the ego may get involved or patterns come in. It's like the imagination goes to the worst instead of, and I'm not saying to the worst or the best, instead of an open platform, it's seeing restrictions and so forth, in a sense of fear or anything of that nature. So the point here, it doesn't matter what age you are, what you've experienced in your life. The thing is, and I've seen it with people that actually finally accept the idea that they are still capable of doing that. Even in their 80s and 90s have been using their imagination to create. And especially when you say, okay, well, how does this world look like? You're now the designer, you're sitting down and so forth. And sometimes they'll say, well, I don't know how. But the point here is that you will see that you can create something way beyond what we've experienced thus far. So please, depending on what platform you're on, please share it with others, because this facilitates others. If you comment it, like it, and subscribe if it's on a page that you can subscribe or follow or anything of that nature, it actually allows it to be distributed more freely through the cyber world, if you want to call it that. Because we do get all restricted to some degree or another, so it doesn't reach as many people. If the work resonates and you'd like to support us, and first of all, I want to thank everybody that has sent in contributions and so forth to support us to do the work. The podcast hasn't been out as often, but that will adjust accordingly shortly, hopefully soon. But yes, if the work resonates, feel free to contribute. It's in the comment section, but it's also in the write-up below. We also have in the write-up in the description box below. We also have a link to the website. We have a link to join the community so that you will get email notifications, certain things come up, and also access to our workshop that we had a few weeks ago. That is very instrumental for us right now. And also from that platform, when you check it out, we also have other workshops that are video and audio recordings all available for you. So until next time, go out and play, have a blast, and use that creative ability that you have.